So now,
Yeah.
well, should I start?
Sure, it's that.
Well, in 1983, I
Well, wait, maybe, why have you waited so long to come forward with this?
because right after it happened, I was afraid I would get back into it.
Yeah.
So that's why I waited.
It was merely the fact that we wanted to forget what had happened. And
Sure.
that is the reason for it.
Yeah.
We didn't want to remember those years and that time.
There was nothing. How long was it before you could even talk about it?
Oh, it was 3 years, 2-3 years. And, well, I'll start.
Okay.
It was 1983. And I went to the doctor and I had a
What was his name?
cold, Dr. Hughes, and I had a cold, and he gave me, what was it?
He gave you Phenergan, cough medicine,
Yes, an antibiotic,
tetracycline,
tetracycline,
your usual valium, the Ehlers-Danlos and Dalmane.
yeah.
It's like,
2 days later, when I woke up in the morning, I couldn't even think. I felt like I had lost my mind. And so I called Otto. He didn't live with us at the time. And he called a friend of his. And the friend came over and brought me over to the hospital. And so that Otto was coming home, but he had to wait until he got a ride. I went into the hospital. I couldn't even sign my name.
I got there right after she got into the hospital.
Yes. And Dr. Hughes ordered some kind of a shot. And I was out for a whole week. Completely out. And Otto used, I called my sister. She came down.
That was before you went to the hospital.
Yes, but she came down the next day and she came in the hospital and she couldn't believe it. And Otto was coming over, he was trying to feed me, and all what they kept me was on drugs. A week later I came out of it and I went home.
Hey, I bring in one.
Yeah.
He brought. You came home, you were feeling much better then. And all of a sudden, when you went got home, he put you back on those drugs,
The Ehlers-Danlos.
especially the Ehlers-Danlos.
75 milligrams, and before he had been prescribing 50 milligrams when she first had this reaction.
And that knocked you right out completely.
And she came out of it in the hospital when they cut the drugs and gave her an enema. And the enema is not in the medical records.
This wasn't that time, it was the time after.
They also gave you another one.
Yes.
And the injection that she received when first being admitted in the hospital was given to her by this nurse Gall. They called her Margaret, Elizabeth Gall or something. And she had braces, and she came in and gave, okay, I won't go into detail. She gave her the injection, and when I asked what it was, she said a sedative. And she was real evasive about it, and she told me it was something thorazine or something like that. And at that point, after the injection, she went into a catatonic state and occasionally mumbling hallucinations she was seeing after that injection. And they just kept pumping her with drugs. When they cut the drugs, gave the enema, she came out of it. They gave her B complex too. I told you to give her B complex.
Then I went home, and a week later I I can't remember exactly what happened, but they told me that I slashed my wrist afterwards. And I certainly, they said, well, you must have been suicidal. Well, why is it? I was 58 years old and I never slashed my wrist before. So
They put you right back on that elevator.
And you started hallucinating and you weren't
Yeah.
sleeping.
and I wasn't sleeping, and
You couldn't eat.
I couldn't eat, I couldn't do anything.
She was constipated, she didn't have any bowel movements.
Let me tell.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So then I went back into the hospital, and again, they filled me up with drugs, and every night I was, I don't know what to say,
Say it in French and then
no, I was
hallucinated.
hallucinating, and it would last all night long. And then finally one day a nurse came and she asked me to sign a paper for the insurance company, which is, I remember vaguely, and she told me if I would sign it. And then Otto came into the room, and it was for shock treatment, it wasn't for insurance. So Otto told me not to sign it. Then the next day, when Otto wasn't there, or Harry wasn't there, they came back with the form, and I really didn't know what I was signing, so I signed for it. And then they started giving me shock treatment.
Let's just go back a little before that. When I was before she had signed this paper, they said it was the insurance form. Dr. Hughes, I had heard his voice yelling when I was going down the hallway towards my mother's room. When I entered the room, he had his hands grasped above her sutures, and he had his face 3 inches from her face. And I walked in and I saw this, and he let her go and got back away from my mother. I held my mother, and she was crying, and she was terrified of him. And he had a white paper, and he wanted her to sign this paper. And my dad came in, and he says that's all they had left was to give her shocks. And my dad and I said, no shocks. And my mother was terrified. She looked at Dr. Hughes and all these hallucinations, and she says, you're the dog-faced man. You're the leader of the pack, the wolves. And we said we wanted a second opinion. And then a few days later,
No, when we asked for the second opinion, he got into a rage, and he walked out of the room and he said, you find yourself a doctor. And at that time, Harry was at that sore throat, he was losing his voice, and he had asked him to look at his throat, and he said, you get some other doctor, I'm not going to bother with you.
and he's doing this, my dad.
Yes, he's, so then,
So, okay, go ahead.
then they gave me a shock treatment the next day. They gave me 2 shock treatments. And then Otto finally had to go to a lawyer so that they would stop the shock treatment. And Harry and Otto went to the lawyer, and he wrote to the hospital and to the doctor that they would have to stop the shock treatment, that was requested. And then he told the other doctor that the letter he received was that we were going to sue him, which wasn't true. It was only about the shock treatment. So then another doctor took over. They finally stopped the shock treatment. Another doctor came over, and he introduced himself to me, and he told me, "You will eat good, and I'm changing all your pills, and you will feel better, and you will go home." And he changed the medication, and I didn't have any more hallucination. I didn't have anything else happening, and I was back on my feet in just another week or so. So the doctor told me if I kept on doing that well, that I could go home. In the meanwhile, Harry went to another doctor, and he thought he had laryngitis. Then he went to a specialist, and we come to find out he had a tumor that was cancerous in his throat. Then I kept going to another psychiatrist after I got out of the hospital.
You know, we went to his name, Dr. von Altenberg, and we went to see him, and he drugged her. He would get her out of the hospital, and he drugged her with.
Well, at least I wasn't hallucinating.
Yeah, but you couldn't concentrate. Well, you couldn't comprehend the television commercial that went on.
I know.
He gave her Melril. He gave her Cylert. Melril's a neuroleptic sedative and causes hallucinations in her. He gave her Cylert, which is a psychostimulant. He gave her Benadryl. It's an antihistamine that very sedating. He gave her Centrax, a benzodiazepine tranquilizer like Valium. He gave her halcyons, Xanax, niacin, tryptophan. She couldn't comprehend the television commercial.
And that lasted about a year.
It was.
And if that wasn't a lotto, I don't think. He used to take me by the hand and take me here and there. I don't think I would have made it if Otto and Harry wouldn't have helped me. They wouldn't have helped me.
I would like to bring out one comment. The aftermath of this has changed my wife a great deal. Prior to going to the hospital with this doctor, especially, she was capable of driving the automobile in traffic in every place. Now she cannot drive behind the wheel. Secondly, and one of the most important things, she used to be able to take cloth material and patterns and make her own dresses or anything that she wanted. Today, she cannot do that and does not understand the designs or anything else. So, her mind has been wiped right out completely. And
Her vision, after getting out of the hospital, her vision deteriorated from that point on rapidly. And it's
Well, I think it has affected Otto so that he's had
well, say about the year. It was a year of it with von Altenberg.
yes.
He just kept on drugging her, and he had behind his desk, behind his seat, was a closet that was full of free samples. And my mother would complain about Dr. Hughes, and he would open the closet and get out free samples and say, "Here, try some of these. Here, take one now." And he'd get a glass of water. And we requested our record, my mother's records, and he won't send the records. He kept all his records. He was. I want to tell this because this is so horrendous in that story.
Okay.
He was. Yeah, I'm trying not to make it too long. He told us about some other doctor and his wife and their seedy divorce. But she doesn't want me to repeat it. It was sleazy. It was about the sexual activities of these people. This physician. What?
He used to bring me up to the doctor, and he used to bring me back because I just couldn't drive. There was no way I could get there. And he used to take me by the hand and take me here and take me there. And finally we went to a doctor, into a psychiatrist into another state. And he took all of those pills, which were about 15 pills a day, he took them away, and he put me on medication. And in 3 or 4 months, I was much better. And except for the memory part, I mean, I don't think that'll ever get better. And I finally thought that, I could think like other people, and I didn't have to hallucinate or anything like that. And I was on tryptophan, which helped me to sleep, but they took them off the market, so it was very hard after that to get back to sleep every night. And I have been under doctor's care ever since. But that has affected Otto terribly. My husband, in the meanwhile, had cancer in his throat, and they had to remove his vocal cord. And my son took care of him like a baby. My husband almost died. But my son was up every night to take care of him, just like he was before to take care of me. And I think that's why he's very affected by all of this. And he needs some help. And I should think that there would be someone that could help him. Because that's not fair.
Well, to help all of us.
Well, as long as they help you, it'll help all of us if they help you now. Because you're the one that needs help.
Yeah, well, Dad gets nightmares, and you couldn't talk about it for years, and all these psychiatrists on it say about what had happened. It was like, forget about it. And I was going berserk. No one would help me. No one would help me get the papers. Finally, one physician requested them from this other physician. Fontana had used his records, and he wasn't releasing them. And this other physician got them for me. And he says, "Here, Otto, put your mind at ease." And I photocopied them all. But we had to get out of the state to do that. We couldn't get anything done. It was just, when I got out of the state even, I couldn't deal, the psychiatrists, they were. Fleischman didn't put anything in the records about what had happened.
Well,
or what
still
you
he has helped me. He helped
I know
me
he did, but what had happened,
What about you? Do you have something to say?
No, I think you've been following along very closely as to what has happened. And I am still of the feeling the doctor giving you the medication should have known better what the medication was doing. They were keeping you in almost a vault of not knowing what was going on.
A zombie state.
Yes, they had a straitjacket. When they took me out of it, that it was over here. When they took me out of it, every rib in my body hurt. And they were wondering why. Well, they had taken me out of it when I was out, so I didn't know what they had done to me. So, and they took all kinds of tests, and which got me nowhere, because they couldn't do anything.
He just kept drugging you, but
Yeah, that's just
there's drug tests.
drugs.
And they don't put him in the They didn't put the injection in there. They gave her a Tylenol injection. I was there. They gave her this injection. They didn't give her a Tylenol. And they weren't giving her water after we said we wanted a second opinion. I'd go into the hospital. There wouldn't be any water in there. There was cadavers. They'd go down the hallway. There'd be 3 at a time or whatever. Go into this freight elevator. At that point, my aunt was so terrified, and she has a heart condition. I said to her, I think you'd better go home. You can't do anything here. You know, the only thing I think it was going to kill her. I hardly ever see my cousins, my aunt, and I like to be more close to them. And, she comes down to help, and then Hughes was going to probably get her. Got everyone else.
So I guess
Let's just hope that he doesn't get any others.
Oh, he's getting people if he's there, if he's still practicing.
He's just passing out drugs.
He tell them the free samples, the
he
box loads.
gave free sample and tried this and tried that. And I got home and I used to throw them in the drawer because I didn't know which one was which. And finally, we threw them all out.
There was box loads of valiums, of these hospital packs, and they're all coiled up. Dalmanes,
Ehlers-Danlos.
Ehlers-Danlos. When I came into the house and I was cleaning it, they had sold their house, and I cleaned it. I filled 2 trash cans of drugs that were in the house.
Pills.
Yeah.
Pills, syrup.
Pills and syrups. And I filled 1 trash can bag of controlled substances, free samples, box loads of these things. These little cartons with a few pills in them, but a whole carton. And the hospital packs. I just filled a bag, trash bag full of them. I dragged it around for years as evidence. Everyone's seen it. I showed all these people. And finally, we threw it out. I couldn't even get the DEA interested in looking at it. They said the state's supposed to handle it. No one in the state's done anything. I called, I cried out, state police, the AG's office, nothing.
And Otto is very much affected by that. He has been ever since it happened, and needs help. And someone has to understand what is going on.
But what happened to us? I can't get any help. They just say, oh, it didn't happen. Oh, it's nothing.
Oh, forget it.
Yeah, forget about it. This is years that we went through. I had to get away from my parents because of the horror that I was seeing, and I couldn't change it. I couldn't do anything about it. I told you, as I said, these drugs are making them sick. And he wouldn't do anything. He'd say, it's a prescription for valiums or something. Calm your nerves. Here's some free samples.
What else? He gave you some other things.
Methylbamates, they're like Quaaludes, and those injections, giving me the hay fever injections during my hay fever season. 10 times the dosage. I was getting 1/10 dilution, then they gave me full strength. I was having tremendous reactions on it. And he says, oh, here, take these tranquilizers. And, it's this drugging everyone. Drug them.
Yeah.
Make you sick with them.
Well, I just want anybody to know if something happened to my husband and I, what this doctor has done to all of us. And Otto should get some kind of help before it's too late, because it has affected him very much so. And we're very close to our son, he's very close to us. But we don't want to have him mess up his life because of us. I mean, we can take care of each other now, but we have to take care of him.
Yeah, but Dad's legs are going, you're going blind. And after going through all this and crying out, Dad with the cancer, you being sick simultaneously, and me trying to tell him, stop giving him the damn drugs, stop. And they just keep on. And, like they can do anything to you. And you can't even defend yourself.
Yeah, well, that wasn't the case
no one
of
helps
that
you.
doctor, Otto.
Yeah, but look at, Fleischman didn't put down on the paperwork that said what had happened. And
Yes, but he helped.
yeah, I know he did help you. He did when I was the one who told him to. It's the Melorel. It's allergic syndrome. That's when he stopped and gave you the nabbing.
Yes,
He cut all that stuff.
yes. He cut out 15 pills a day, and I was taking 4 a day afterwards. Different pills, of course.
But then she went to another doctor, and what did he say when you started talking about how bad Hughes was and what he did?
Oh, he didn't want to hear about it. So, well,
They all stand behind each other.
We can't get his records either.
no, well, he's gone to California.
Yeah, he's practicing in California now.
Better off to be there.
No, he's better off probably not practicing.
Well, don't you think that's about...
I think that covers just about everything.
Well,
I think it has affected all of us a great deal.
I think it has affected Otto now.
It is. It's affecting Otto now. As he
He
looks
needs help.
back at it, and as you said, he does need help. He needs something of a guidance or something or other to snap him back to himself.
but to recognize this, justice, I want this to be recognized. People can't be allowed to do this to people. He had us down each other's throats with all these drugs. It's unjust, it's unfair, it's got to stop. No one's doing anything about it. No one. The DEA says the state handles it. The state's not doing anything. Lawyers would never want to touch this. Oh no, it's too big for me. Just the runaround. I go to a psychiatrist or a sociologist or a psychiatrist, and all I get is that that's gone away. But every time that they go into a hospital, I don't look at a hospital as a place of healing. I look at it as a place that they can do anything they want to my parents or myself if I get sick. They can harm me and get away with it. Do anything they want. Strap you down, drug you out, snap shocks in your head. No, but it's terrible. And then they say, well, maybe you can get your life together if you do this or you do that. Yeah, well, there's got to be some justice. This isn't right. This isn't right. It sucks. It sucks.
Well, I guess that's about it. Well, I hope there'll be someone understanding that can help you.
Yeah, and stop these types of individuals from harming people. Protect the people.
Well, I guess that's it, Joe.
Well, I thought I'd discuss a little bit about the long-term effects that we've had and the effects that we're getting currently. We've moved many times since this happened. With each move, the folks have to find a new physician. What happens, I get very hyperactive, figuring that the same thing may happen again. I realize that there's no protection, that it may not, there's no guarantee that it may not happen again because no one enforces, goes after these types of doctors. I get memories of what had happened. Sometimes they start out this small, they keep going, and I get nightmares. It's hard to stop it. My mother has this problem too. If we talk about it, or there's too many medical problems and something, my dad's having a problem. He had,
Gotcha.
yeah, but he had some cancer removed from his face. And the doctor was very good, but I had to have an ammonia inhaler just to even go into the hospital. The surgeon was very good. He showed me exactly what he was going to do to my father. And that put me at ease in the sense that he was being honest with me. There was no deception. What had happened in Nashua at St. Joe's was deception. deception. I'm frightened of deception, and it provokes me. He was very kind to me. Explained everything. Afterwards, I took care of my father's face. I had taken care of his throat when he had his larynx, vocal cord, most of it removed. When my mother was going to von Oldenburg, a neighbor would take care of my mother, would sit with her, and I would take my father for radiation therapy. By the time it got to when the surgeon was cutting my father's face, it had been, this surgery for cancer had been done previously by Hughes in Nashua at St. Joseph Hospital. He's not a surgeon, and when he removed the cancer on his face, he sent for pathology that was returned days later, and it came back cancer. And the thing grew back over the years across his face. When he had that surgery recently with that, 32 stitches, and cleaning it again, and the memories of all these things, it brought back the memories of what had happened in St. Joseph Hospital. It plays like a videotape in my mind. I can't get it out of my mind. I've written books, and I try to do anything to stop it when it starts. If it gets too bad, I can't type, I can't write, I can't do anything. I can't eat, I don't sleep. The nightmares primarily surround being restrained, my mother being injected. I can't do anything to help her or to stop what's going on. I get feelings that when these things happen, that they were killed. I wake up in the middle of the night. I'm so alone, and I wake up. I don't sweat, and I never sweat, even under extreme stress. I never sweat. It always seems to me unusual, but my mother has to wake me up if the nightmares start like this. I don't have nightmares about other things. I have nightmares about this hospital. That's what I'm getting nightmares from. It was a year after it had happened to the folks, and it was in '84 that I started noticing that it was really severe on me, that I had nowhere to turn and no one that I could get help from. And the Fleischman, Dr. Fleischman, I kept saying to him, get the medical paperwork, and he said he didn't need it, and he wouldn't look into it. I feel today that even going to a doctor, and I've noticed this, if they sense that something like this has happened, or I've been kicked around by a doctor, they're afraid that they'll get sued, or would just throw away like dirty laundry. I fear going into doctors' offices. I really got to check these guys out. I don't like going. I'm frightened of the doctors who are the free sample doctors. You go to these people, they get you all screwed up on these drugs like Hughes. There are doctors like that. In Florida, the doctors do seem a lot better. There isn't that push of free samples. The doctors get kickbacks from doling out these free samples and things like that. I haven't seen an abuse of that down here. But I don't like going into medical hospitals. I'm terrified. They don't want to tell you anything. Down here they seem to be a little better about saying things. But it's frightening. Talking to sociologists and psychiatrists, I get to the point that I didn't even want to talk about it anymore. I just felt that I was going to go nuts. 1985, I was right out of my mind. We had moved again, new doctors. I'm just trying to think of the things that how it's affecting me. I don't like being around people who don't know what I've been through. My family's been through.
Don't believe.
Yeah, don't believe us that, you guys are crazy. We witnessed this. We've been through it. This is no less a torture than any other torture. It's affected all of us. I'm frightened that I'm going to be even more and more trapped in a situation where I'm going to have stressors. Medical type stressors as my parents get older. I couldn't even say to a doctor that all he has to be is real honest with me. We've suffered a lot. People just don't know what it does. It's like, why can't you talk about it? At times to my mother, it was so horrible on her that my father, he didn't want my mother to revert back to this or die from just the fear and the memories of it. She lives by forgetting about it, and I want the truth. I want this to be recognized. I think it may help. I can't have relationships. I wouldn't even. I'd be afraid of it even at this point. But as soon as I have a relationship or attempted to form any relationships, someone gets sick, I'd be pulled back. Like I was pulled back. I had to get away from the folks, and I was pulled back and dragged into this whole thing of the horror of what went on. I tried to get away from it. It was too much even before it happened. I have my nerves are shot. I was arrested several times after this had happened to the folks. I had a lot of people who were, believe in me and try to. It's really hard dealing with all these things. I tried writing it out. A friend of mine let me borrow his computer, and I wrote one book based on a true story. See how bad it is. Check full of references, medical and scientific. It's like it's the only way I can. I wasn't coherent at all before, and once I started typing, I was able to talk and be coherent again. I wrote a chemistry book. I gotta peel the edges off this one. I wrote a poetry book, and I like poetry, but it's not really marketable. I did a book just as big as this one on the non-fiction of what had happened. I feel obsessed with this thing, but I unless someone recognizes what happens, I just feel that anyone can do anything to anyone. We have no protections. We're slaves. We're basic slaves in this society. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I have severe intestinal problems. My nerves are just shot. Severe constipation. I got an anal fissure, hemorrhoids. I could never go for surgery. Dude, it's frightening. I have problems sometimes eating, especially if the folks have any medical things in this start remembering about it, and keeps going around. Or I stick to the typewriter to get my mind off of things, but even that, it comes back. Even working on trying to get these paperwork together to show what had happened, hopes that someone would recognize it. At times I'd have to stop for 6 months, a year. I couldn't look at the paperwork, the medical paperwork, when I finally got most of it, until I think it was 87. Started being able just to look at it a little bit. And each year I could look at it a little more, and I says, I've got to work and get it out so that we know, they can see what happened and know what happened. It's not something easy. I don't know what's going to happen if Dad can't walk and Margot's blind. I have no one I can talk to, or it's really frightening. It's, no more sickness. Can't have any more sicknesses. Yeah, no. I get the picture. Anyone would be screwed up.